And I just want to mention a couple of things, and I'll come back to you in a second, Joe, which is one is the inheritance tax that's now being imposed on small farms, small family farms for the first time ever. And then trusts are something that the farmers can use to preserve their assets.
You have to have three certainties with a trust. Basically, the settler or the grantor or the person who's making the trust, they have to be completely sure this is what they want to do. They have to be aware that they are doing what they're doing, and they're corpus mentis, and they know they're absolutely fine with it. The second is the property. You have to have the details of the property that you want to put in trust, full address, the deed registry number to go to. So you need full names, who these people are, whether they're your children, because if they're not your children, that makes a difference to your liability. But you've just got to be really clear. So everybody has to have their full legal names, the full legal title of the property, and a description. And you also have to have two independent witnesses to witness the deed, not family, must be over 18. It's a legal document.
But that's illegal to pay HMRC any tax because they're going to use some of those proceeds to facilitate, fund, aid and abet genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and terrorism. And it's illegal for them to ask. So then what would be appropriate there is making a conditional revocable trust from bit.ly/make-war-history. They can have the funds provided they can demonstrate they're not violating these statutes.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
Governments throughout the Western world are taking steps to rob us of our freedom, our liberty, and our property. In this video, I'm going to be talking about what we can do in order to preserve our wealth and our assets in the face of this onslaught. Hi, this is Crypto Rich, working with you to preserve your freedom and to empower you. I am joined by Josephine Wolo. Jo is a former mortgage advisor, but she's also an expert in trusts. So we're going to be finding out what trusts are. Now, before I introduce her, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter, CryptoRichYT, join my official Telegram announcements channel. And if you're watching this on YouTube, well, right now, depending upon what Joe says, I don't know if I'm going to post it on YouTube. So please support me on ODYSEE and on Rumble, and you'll find the links in the description below. Hey, Joe, thank you so much for making yourself available.
Good morning, Rich. How are you?
I'm very, very well. I came across you because I listened to an interview that you gave on Richard Vogues' show, and just a shout out to Richard Vogues' show. Richard does an incredible job with speaking to all sorts of people about remedies that we can employ in order to preserve our lives and take care of ourselves, because the government ain't doing that anymore. So please go and follow Richard Vogues. Find him on ODYSEE, Rumble, and on YouTube. Okay. So, Joe, you used to be a mortgage advisor and now you're a trust expert. Do you want to say just a little bit about yourself?
Okay. First of all, I'm not an expert. I'm not a solicitor. I haven't been legally trained. I am a licensed mortgage advisor. I've still got my license. I've been doing that for over 19 years. May that last year, I decided to leave the network for several reasons, but I've just lost the heart for it. Really, it's not a great industry. There's not many people in it. I don't know anybody in there who is awake, should we say.
Right.
And I decided to move away from it. I had the idea to put my own property in trust. So I've been researching for the past year, and I'm only helping people with the private express trusts, because there's over like 125 trusts out there. You can put anything in trust, and it's a bit of a minefield, just like mortgages are these days.
Okay. Before we go into trust, I just want to say something about your expert status or not, right? And also just to remind people, none of this is legal advice or anything, and people should do their own due diligence and check it out. You and I are two human beings, two common law people. I don't know what the word is, right? But we're just two human beings, man and woman, talking about
we're just ordinary human beings trying to find the best way through. Yeah.
And the fact that you're not a licensed solicitor or anything is, I think, really, really good news. You know that my children never went to school.
Yes.
I know a whole lot more about education than most teachers do. And then solicitors are just trained this much. We're going to be talking about stuff that's outside of their purview. Solicitors nowadays and barristers, they're not even taught about the Bill of Rights. They don't know about it. So I think it's great that you're not a qualified expert. Thank bloody goodness, because that is just a badge of honor from the establishment that they approve.
I'd be just another indoctrinated arm of the government. And I've always been a bit of a rebel. I've never done anything by the book, and I went to the worst school probably in Ipswich many years ago. Which I say I went, I didn't go very often actually. And everything I've learned since leaving school, I've taught myself. Put myself through the exams for mortgage advice. As I said, I've been doing that for over 19 years. I've never had one complaint in all that time. I've never advertised. All my work has been referrals. And I've still got clients now who, I had from the very beginning. I can still give advice. I can give basic advice, and I'll do that for free to anybody who wants it. But I can't see the rates at the moment because I've been switched off the system. Yeah. But, if you want to know how much you can borrow or what certain lenders' criteria is, that's fine. I know, it's all ingrained.
Sure. We'll have your contact details where people can reach out to you should they wish to do so.
Yeah, because, mortgages, we've gone from, self-cert mortgages, anyone can get a mortgage, to jump through these thousand hoops. And, before long, they'll want DNA. They want so much information. It's incredible. And the compliance is a nightmare. You can't say what you want. You can't do what you want. Or you're not allowed to do this. Or is that person vulnerable? Or no, they've got credit card debts. They must be vulnerable. Well, that's everybody in the country then, isn't it? It's ridiculous now. Sorry?
So, forgive me interrupting. One of the things I can see in that process now, why they're doing it, is what they want to do is they want to drive us to a point where we own nothing. And,
yes.
And apparently they think that's going to make us happy, and then they're going to give us bugs for dessert and for dinner. So they've got to make it harder and harder for people to own property, and then people Absolutely. Who have property, they got to take it away from them, which is where trusts come in. And I just want to mention a couple of things, and I'll come back to you in a second, Joe, which is one is the inheritance tax that's now being imposed on small family farms.
Oh, yes, I was going to mention that. Yes, definitely.
For the first time ever. And then trusts are something that the farmers can use to preserve their assets. Otherwise, it's just going to get bought up by large corporations like BlackRock and everything.
Yeah. I mean, years ago, when I was a child and when you were a child, if you were lucky enough to buy your own home, my parents never did. I bought my mother's house for years down the line. It was an ex-council house. Mm-hmm. But usually, if you were able to buy your own home back then, you would keep your home and you would pass it on to your children, and they would pass that on to their children. And then there would be no need for a mortgage. Well, not as many mortgages as there is a need for now, anyway. Yep. And and the same with farms. They're passed down generations. It's kept in the families. And obviously, they've brought in this new tax law to stop that happening. And like you've said, we won't have farms, we won't have farmers, we won't have food. We will be starved into submission.
Yes, very Stalinesque. But then,
yes,
what do you expect from Keir Stalin? Now, the other thing where trusts come in my own experience of trusts, is I have been using the probity co-process, and that's bit.ly/make-war-history. So I've let HMRC know that I owe you this amount. I've put it in a conditional revocable trust that you can have the capital gains tax that's due, provided you can demonstrate that you are not violating any of the terms of the International Criminal Court Act 2001 and the Terrorism Act 2000. And I've cited the specific statutes, which essentially say, Joe, if you're, and I think you know about this, but for people who don't, that if you are acting directly or indirectly and asking for any funds that go into central government or local government coffers, whether it's TV license, penalty charge, for parking or speeding, the ULEZ charge, or
council tax,
capital gains tax, inheritance tax, income tax, any of those, you're breaking the law by asking me for that money. Mm-hmm. And if I pay you, I'm also, so let me distinguish, I'm also violating legislation, violating statute, as are you, because those two statutes that I mentioned, the International Criminal Court Act and the Terrorism Act, make it a criminal offense to ask for or to give funds to any agency that is going to use them to aid, abet, be an accessory to, facilitate, or fund acts of genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and terrorism.
Absolutely.
By the Parliament in those statutes, the UK's actions in Ukraine, the UK's actions in Yemen, the UK's actions in Israel are violations of those statutes.
Yes.
I've been having this back and forth for almost 12 months now with HMRC, and I've now submitted an affidavit which they've failed to rebut. And as far as I'm concerned, that's pretty much the end of it. Because they haven't taken me to court because they'd be asking the court to compel me to do something that's illegal.
Yes, yeah. But unfortunately, that doesn't stop them sending the debt collectors around, does it?
Well, let me tell you about those. So they referred me to a couple of debt enforcement agents, and I replied to them by letter, not by email, because I want to make it easy for them.
No.
Is send me do you have a legally compliant, properly executed court order? If you don't, go away, because HMRC haven't taken me to court. Otherwise, Joe, I'm going to send you, as soon as we finish, I'm going to send you a demand for payment. So, well, based on what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, if people want to find out more, go to bit.ly/make war history. And you can find out more about this process. You don't even have to be anti-war. You might just be interested in preserving your own assets in the face of this onslaught. Because
Yes. Which you've worked very, very hard for, no doubt.
yeah, and they want to steal our assets every which way they can. So
Yes.
bit.ly/make war history. There is a free Zoom call every other Monday, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. UK time. There's one on the 11th of November and one on the 25th of November, where it's a Q&A session.
Yeah.
You can ask questions and learn about this process. I'll have the link in the description below. So I know about trust that way.
Yes, and that's a brilliant idea. As I said, it doesn't stop them sending debt collection agencies. And I had a bit of a scuffle, should we say, a few years ago with the delightful Eon, who turned up at my gate with 5 people, and with a court order on a tablet.
Well, that's
which I said that's illegal. That's not a real. Yes, it is, madam. No, it isn't. It's not. It's got no stamp. It's got no signature. It's got no name. It didn't even have my name. It just had the occupier. So I kept them at my gate from 10 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They called the police 3 times. The police said that that court order is valid. I said, well, you don't know your own laws, and it's not. I can assure you, it's not. And they, at the end of the day, they basically said, if you don't let these people in to do their job, we'll arrest you for disturbing the peace. So to cut a very long story short, I gave them hell for 6 hours. I was suffering from food poisoning the night before, so I was absolutely feeling terrible, but, I persevered. And then I reported them to Ofgem, which, they're all in the same bed together, unfortunately, so they didn't uphold any of my complaints. I gave them solid proof that they'd broken several laws. They completely ignored it and didn't uphold my complaint. And then Eon chased me for £12,500 for 18 months worth of utilities. So I wrote back and I said, that's absolutely fine. I will see you in court, because you need to prove that you've done your due diligence to find out who's actually living in this property for that period. And also, I want a complete breakdown of how you got to this extortionate amount, as I only had one tenant in the property at the time. And I've heard nothing since. And this is a year or so ago. But they did write to me recently and said, oh, we've put defaults on your credit file.
Right.
Well, who cares?
Yeah, those are meaningless. Those are easy.
But they're broke, I haven't stopped. I haven't let them get away with it. I had refunded. This is another battle I'm facing now with the bank. I had all my utility payments refunded to me as I paid them in error. Mm-hmm. And everything that was the September before last. And then come February, the bank started chasing me for the money, said they'd had proof of my contract. Well, all they had was a welcome letter. And I said, well, that's not a contract for a start. Well, we'll be taking that money out of your account next week. So I said, no, you won't. So I closed my account. I opened another bank account, put my money in there. They didn't close my account. They hit me with an overdraft of $6,900, and they proceeded to chase me for this money. So I sent them a DSAR notice, and I said, I want you to prove to me that you have the legal right to work on behalf of a third party. Because on your direct debit mandate, it says in paragraph whatever it was, if the organisation doesn't agree with this refund, then they will come after you for the money. They will pursue you for that money. So I said, so why are you pursuing another organisation on their behalf? It's got nothing to do with you. You've done your job. You've given me the refund. Then you go back to the organisation. They pay you. And if they have a problem, they have to chase me themselves. Well, after a few months, they came back and said, basically, load of legal jargon. But what they basically said was, we're not allowed to give you that proof of our legal rights. So I thought, you're copping out here. And the funny thing is, they've shut my account now. Or they said they didn't shut my account at the time because I was being investigated. For what, I don't know. They haven't said. But now they've shut my account, and they've also stopped chasing me for the money. But it's shown on my credit report. So my next step is the Ombudsman, and my next step is court, because they have committed fraud.
Joe, couple of things I can see there, right? And again, none of this is legal advice, and people got to be, you've got to be responsible for yourself for what you take on to do, right? Nobody who's watching this is a victim of me or of Joe. You're responsible for the decisions you make and how you conduct yourself in life. We're just sharing ideas and experiences and opinions.
Yes.
One, I think an affidavit, a statement of fact of what's happened, and then they have to rebut that.
Yes.
So then if you assert, listen, this is what your direct debit mandate says, right? They have to rebut where they've got these extra powers or whatever, and then they're not going to be able to rebut it, and then that counts as court standard evidence. It's an unrebutted affidavit, stands as fact. The other thing is using the bit.ly/make war history process in dealing with corporations, including utility companies, because some of that money that you paid to Eon, they paid as tax to HMRC, and then HMRC, some of that money went into, well, all of that money will have gone into the consolidated fund, and some of that will have been used for the slaughter of people in Ukraine, Yemen, and Gaza, in which case you're breaking the law.
Yes.
And I know you're a good law-abiding citizen, Joe. And you don't want to break the law, and they can't compel you to break the law. So that's another approach, right? And we're not going to get into promissory notes because I haven't explored those, right? We have to be careful to keep this kind of tight.
I'm on that subject now. I'm up to my neck in it so far with promissory notes. So yeah, that's another journey.
Yes, and then also the fraud of mortgage contracts and all of that.
Oh yes,
yes.
But look, say no more.
let's stick with trust, right? So what is the base? What is a trust?
Well, basically, if you do an express private trust to keep your property safe, basically you're signing away your rights to this property, and so the trustees it's their responsibility to make sure, if you've got a mortgage, that you're still paying your mortgage, and to make sure the upkeep of the property. And when you pass over, it's their responsibility to do all the legal requirements, notify HMRC, the land registry, dish out sell the property if that's what you want them to do, and share out the proceeds to your beneficiaries. So it's quite a responsibility, but it's not that difficult. They make out that it's that difficult, but it isn't. If you've got like 20 houses and loads of land, and yes, it can get very complicated. But most of the people I'm dealing with are people who have just got one home, maybe one or two buy-to-lets in the background, and they want to protect those assets for their children and their family going forwards. And you can do this. There's a few flies in the ointment here, which you have to be aware of.
Let me break this down a little bit, right? So a trust, my understanding, there's three parties involved. There's the settler. So, for example, my house,
settler or settlers,
settler, my office, for example, here, right? My brand new office, courtesy of some AI bot.
Yeah.
So I own this office. I'm the settler, and then I have a trust where you are the trustee, i.e., you're the guardian, the owner of the assets that have been handed over to you, and there may be beneficiaries, primary, secondary, tertiary beneficiaries, that you, at some point, the assets get handed over to them, provided certain conditions are met. That's the basic structure of it, right? Now, trust has to be really clear about what's actually being handed over.
Yes.
And also, I think the what's required of the trustee has got to be really clear, and of the beneficiaries really clear. But that's pretty much it. That's the structure of a trust. And
you have to have three certainties with a trust. Basically, the settler or the grantor or the person who's making the trust have to have, they have to be completely sure this is what they want to do. They have to be aware that they are doing what they're doing, and they're corpus mentis, and they know, they're absolutely fine with it. The second is, the property. You have to have, the details of the property that you want to put in trust. I mean, the basic, the full address, the deed registry number, that sort of thing. And the third one is your beneficiaries. You've got to be very clear who you want this property or whatever assets it is in the trust to go to. So you need full names, who these people are, whether they're your children, because if they're not your children, that makes a difference to your liability, how much tax liability you get. So you've just got to be really clear. So everybody has to have, their full legal names, the full legal title of the property, and a description. And you also have to have two independent witnesses to witness the deed, not family, must be over 18, friends, whatever. And, that's a legal document. And I come across this issue all the time where people say, but it's a piece of paper. It's just a piece of paper. It's a legal piece of paper because it's got all your signatures on there. It's like a will. You know, when you write a will, unless you go to a will writing service and they'll put it on a database. But if you do your own will, you don't notify anybody. It sits in your drawer until you pop your clogs, and then your children go through it, and that's it. It's a legal document.
Okay, so just on this, because this is something that boggles my mind, but it's a declaration by me, I suppose, as the owner of this office, this fine office behind me. And okay, the fact that I've signed it, that it's been witnessed by a couple of people that aren't family, that it lays out these instructions, that I'm compos mentis, I'm really clear what I'm stating in here.
Yeah.
That makes it a legal document. But where's the basis in law or case law or the reference somewhere in the dim distant past that says yes, this is now valid? Is there anything like that?
Well, you can go online and say, what makes a trust or a will valid, and it's very, very simple. It's just what you have just said. It has to be set out correctly. It has to be dated and witnessed and signed, and that's it. And you've got to be very clear of what your intentions are and how you want this property to be managed and be looked after until you pass over.
Okay. Now, why this is mind-boggling, right, is that it's challenging the sort of common notion that property and trust and law and legislation is very, very difficult, and I really should hand it over to paid experts and appointed state-recognized functionaries. A little bit like I can see parallels with home education.
Mm-hmm.
Because teaching your children at home is very difficult and really best done by state-appointed functionaries who can then brainwash them or program them in a particular way, when actually it's really, really simple. Just let them play. So
yes, because people think if they homeschool their children, they've got to sit them at the table for 6 hours and make them do English and make them do geography and make life. Life is an education. Take them out there, show them the world.
Yes,
let them meet new people. Experience it.
We certainly did that, but the parallel I can see there, right? So we're not taught about legislation. We're not taught about law. We're not taught about our lawful rights. We're not taught that the fact in the UK there is a written constitution. There's a set of documents that comprise a written constitution that cannot be amended or altered by Parliament, that lasts forever, that protects our inalienable rights, which are the rights that we have by virtue of being born, of being human. We already have those. They're not given to us by government. Okay, so that it could be so simple. Oh my God, I just got to do it the correct way.
Yes.
But it's really, really simple. And, people can find out this information themselves. They want to do their own due diligence. But I know.
A lot of the information, because, people have got lots of questions. I had lots of questions. I've been looking into this for over a year now.
Yeah.
And I've been down every rabbit hole. I've asked every question you could possibly ask. And I've searched and searched and searched for the law that says you have to register these trusts. Now, if you go online, HMRC, do I have to register a private trust? Yes, you do, but it could affect the privacy of this trust. Well, of course it could. It's bloody private, but there is nothing to say this is the law. And I've also asked the consequences of the law.
There's no statute? No.
And I've said, what are the consequences of not registering the trust? Well, if you don't register it within the allotted time, I think it's 6 months. Don't quote me on that, though. I need to check that. Then you might get fined £100. And if you don't register it at all and you pop your clogs, then your trustees we might fine you £5,000. Well, if you're saving God knows how many hundreds of thousands of pounds by not having to pay for a nursing home care, £5,000's nothing.
No.
But it does say, and it does say on the HMRC website, we tend to be lenient with people regarding this matter because most people don't realise you have to register it. So in most cases, we don't take any action because they bloody can't. It's all about the wording. It's all about keeping you in fear. Oh, I don't want to get into trouble.
That's very.
And that's how they got us in lockdown. Fear, fear.
Just so crooked, the way that they're weaving around and dodging and obscuring and obfuscating and confusing and thus depriving us of our lawful rights. Because the Bill of Rights, 1618A or 1689 Bill of Rights, same document, no fine, fee or forfeiture without conviction. So if HMRC, what do you mean you're sending me a fine? Take me to bloody court first. You can't just fine me. I'm going to fine you, Joe. I'm going to say you're going to get a lot of invoices, a court demand for a debt that I say you owe me plus a fine because you paid late.
The thing is, we've been taught not to question authority. But now we're questioning it, and now we're saying, hang on a minute, really? Can you prove that? I mean, like, you know, the problems with the Eon I've had, and you know, and the water board and everything else. Well, prove to me that water is fit for human consumption, because you know you've got the worst carcinogenic in there, which was fluoride. You've got mercury. You've got dozens of other chemicals, and you know, why should I have to be paying through the nose for something that's not even, you know, which poison is poison? I mean, we're all having to still our water now because it's not safe to drink.
We have Berkey water filters for a few years now. Yeah.
I mean, I've got 2 sterilisers which I use for cooking, because I won't even use tap water for cooking. I've got filters on my showers. I mean, I sound a bit paranoid, but I've got a Berkey for drinking water. I mean, it's disgraceful that you have to go to these lengths to get a drink.
But they are doing this slowly because they want us. You know, the Great Reset is the 21st century's final solution.
Yeah.
That, you know, they want owning nothing, being happy. They want to.
It's slowly boiling the frog, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. Okay, now back to trust. We have to stay on track.
Right. We keep digressing. Yes. So.
Yes.
So basically, you know, the basics are, there's a few fly in the ointments there. We've got the 7-year rule. So if you write your property in trust to save nursing home fees, you have to survive those 7 years. Right. Otherwise, tough. So, you know, the sooner you do it, the better, really. Also, inheritance and tax liabilities, then you have 325,000 each, which I was quite surprised that they didn't lower that in the budget, actually. But I think that's probably coming down the line.
That will come.
Yeah, and if you're gifting your property to children, grandchildren, foster children, you know, adopted children, then you get an extra 175,000 on top. So you get 500,000, and you know, most people, that's adequate for them not to pay inheritance tax. Mm-hmm. And there's no inheritance tax payable on married couples. So if you pop your gloss first, your wife will get everything you've got. If it's written in, if everything's in joint names, it's even better. Mm-hmm. So there's no inheritance tax payable on spouses, or, you know, but if you're living in sin, as they used to say, cohabitating, then, you know, that could be disastrous, because the law doesn't recognise people who are not married or have a civil relationship. Right. So if you've been living with somebody for 30 years and they die, you don't get nothing. Right. Okay. It goes down the rules of intestacy. So you either get married, which is a bit drastic, or you write a trust. Or, you know, and you know, if you want to just write your trust for your property, and say you have other assets, you know, you have money in the bank, you have a bit of gold stashed away somewhere, then as long as it's under the inheritance tax liability figure, then you can just put that in your will.
No, just the 7-year rule. So if my wife and I were to write a trust for our home to our children, if we die within 7 years, then it may be liable for tax depending upon the value of it.
Yes.
If after the 7 years, if we die afterwards, there's no tax liability or anything?
As long as you're under the threshold, yes, that's right. But right. The 7-year rule, once you get into, you know, once you've had the trust for 3 years, it starts decreasing on a sliding scale. So it doesn't start 40% for the 7 years. After 3 years, it starts decreasing. So, but still, you know, why should you have to pay anything at all?
And then, I've never paid inheritance tax yet because I haven't died. The inheritance tax is something that I then pay to HMRC, or my children would then pay.
Your trustees, when you pop your clogs, your trustees are responsible to pay off any debts, including mortgages or anything like that. But their first payment needs to be to HMRC, and they have to be paid first. And they have to be paid within 6 months.
Okay, but that's illegal to pay HMRC any tax, because they're going to use some of those proceeds to facilitate, fund, aid and abet genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and terrorism. And it's illegal for them to ask. So then what would be appropriate there is making a conditional revocable trust from bit.ly/makewarhistory. They can have the funds provided they can demonstrate they're not violating these statutes.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, this whole thing is a minefield. And you know, I look into all different, I mean, you know far more than I do. But, you know, it hurts my brain sometimes. You know, there's so much to learn. There really is. And, you know, not everybody's capable. I'm not putting people down at all. But they're not capable. You know, they worry about everything. You know, they need help. They need people to point them in the right direction. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and everything I've said, everything I'm saying today is you can go online and you can check it out for yourselves. Now, there's a few comments apparently on my video with Richard. I haven't looked at the comments because, you know, I like to keep positive. Because other people's opinions of me, if they're negative, it's none of my business. So they can carry on. But, you know, people saying, oh, she didn't mention the GROB rules. Well, I only had an hour. You know, I don't, you know, you have to cram in an awful lot in an hour. And I didn't mention the GROB rules because it can become quite complex. But the GROB rules were brought in 1986, I believe. Gifts with reservation of benefit. Now, that means gifts with reservation of benefit. Look it up.
Okay.
If you're liable for inheritance tax on your property, then you have to pay market rent for as long as you live in that property until you die. Now, if you move out of that property for 7 years and then you move back in again, you're still liable for inheritance tax. So if you pay market rent for your property that you bought and you're living in, then obviously that tax has to be paid, that rent has to be paid to your trust, your trustees. And so your trustees will be liable to pay tax on that rent. Okay, so this is how they've got people. There are a couple of ways around this, which I'm not going to say on this video, but there are a couple of ways around this. But that's a biggie. That's a big worry.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you can get out of that is to pay market rent. You can pay it yearly, and you can pay it yearly into your trust with a promissory note. And then, as long as you can prove you've paid that in every year. And, you know, you're supposed to have a separate account for your trust, which brings up more problems. Because if you've got, you know, a trust in a bank account, it has to have its own account in its own name. Of course, HMRC gets notified.
Yeah.
So either that or you have to move out. I mean, if you're in your 80s, then perhaps your children would love you to move in with them for the last 7 years of your life.
Well, my wife and I don't own another home. We're not going to move out. But again, so we can make our own promissory note to pay the market rent on an annual basis so that we can pay the tax. Except, Joe, it's illegal to pay the tax. It's illegal to fund genocide and terrorism and war crimes and crimes against humanity. And I'm a good law-abiding citizen. I don't want to do illegal acts. Exactly. The murder of people, and it's illegal for them to ask.
But there's still a lot of fear out there. Everyone's frightened of HMRC coming knocking on their door. You know, that's what I mean. Some of these letters, you know yourself, back in the day when I've been self-employed for over 30 years. I've been self-employed mortgage advisor. You know, I never worked for a bank because I can't bloody stand them, to be honest with you. And there's a lot of fear out there because if you're a bit late with paying your tax every year or putting in your accounts, the letters they send you are disgusting. We have the right to come to your home and take out of your home, you know, goods that equates to whatever you owe us. I mean, they're threatening and breaking in and taking your personal belongings. Well, they're not goods; they're personal belongings. So, you know, that's another thing. So, you know, it frightens people. I had a client whose accountant forgot to put the VAT on his accounts. He didn't know anything about it. The first thing he knew about it when he had debt collectors at the door from HMRC saying you owe us £8,000, and he paid it on the doorstep, believe it or not.
Wow. Now they do that. This is a harassment shakedown. Governments are gangsters. The difference between governments and gangsters is the gangsters wear better suits than government's employees.
Yeah.
Right? But they want just on that. There's so many ways and tricks and stuff that they use in order to deprive us of our liberty and our lawful rights, that we got to educate ourselves. Just in that case, that they can't threaten to just come and take your stuff. Even if they do take your stuff, they require you to sign that they've taken. Yes. Don't sign.
Exactly. Yeah. But see, that's the problem. People don't know this. You know, we're not taught anything like this in schools. We're not even taught the basics of life in schools anymore. You know, they don't have cooking classes. They don't have, you know, basic mechanics, which they used to have. They don't have metalwork, woodwork, like they do. So I'm getting on a bit. So they had all that when I was a kid. They don't have anything like that anymore. They want everyone to sit
hold on. They need to make room for gender studies.
What, the two genders you're talking about?
Oh, don't be so racist and transphobic. 104 genders and counting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot. Yeah. Well, Trump's in now, so men can't have babies anymore.
Oh, thank bloody goodness.
You wouldn't survive anyway if you did.
Oh my God, thank goodness. Okay. All right. So again, I mean, there's so many avenues and rabbit holes to go down, right? So let's stick to trust. So these are private express trusts. Now there's no, you said earlier, there's no statutory requirement or
to register.
that you need to inform HMRC, but HMRC just say you have to tell us, you have to tell us, you have to tell us.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's
Or
no,
we may do this, or we may do that.
yeah, there's no legal force behind it.
No,
And
no,
do these have to be notarized by a solicitor, these private express trusts?
no. You don't need to notarise a trust unless it's got a foreign element to it. Say if you've got a holiday home in Spain or something like that. There's no legal requirement to get that done at all. You could get it legalised. When you have it, say if you had it notarised, you have to have the settlor, the trustees, and the witnesses all in the same room at the same time for them to witness all the signature. And if you've got families or your trustees are scattered in different parts of the country, that's, it's almost impossible to get everyone together. I mean, I've got 3 sons and they live in Ipswich, and it's difficult to get them in the same room. So, that's really not somebody, people really don't want to be bothered with that. It's a bit of a hassle. You can get it legalised. So you could do the trust, you could get it witnessed and sign it, and then later on you could get it legalised. A notary can legalise it, a solicitor can legalise it, but they may still notify HMRC. So you need to do a little bit of shopping around. I wouldn't pick, the big corporate solicitors, because they're all controlled. And they could lose their license if they don't notify HMRC of your intentions for this trust. So I would pick, a notary, a one-man band somewhere, just ring around or email and just say, by the way, do you have to inform HMRC of this?
Right.
So you've got to be a bit careful, because, I mean, even if you're not liable for inheritance tax, they've got your information now.
Yeah.
And your trustees will need to, may need to do accounts every year for this trust. They have to update it all the time. They have to let HMRC what they're doing with this. It's all invasion of your privacy.
Yeah.
It's like this registering your bloody chicken business. You don't just have to register your chickens. You have to keep updating that register. It's ridiculous. And they crashed. The website was crashed. I don't know if you heard. It was crashed because people were registering, pigeons in their garden and frozen chickens in their freezer. It's just a joke.
Oh, you don't get how dangerous it is to national security if the government doesn't know where your chickens are.
Well, they've just had, I saw online yesterday, I can't remember where it was, but they've actually started culling a load of chickens in Yorkshire somewhere now because they've tested positive for bird flu. I mean, this is what's coming down the line. They don't want you growing your food. They don't want you keeping livestock, especially not chickens, because you've got meat and eggs there.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, people this is going to wake people up as well. They think it's absolutely ridiculous. I live in a village and there's 2 or 3 people with lots of chickens, and they sell their eggs. And I buy the eggs. They're free range. They're much better for you than shop bought ones. What's going to happen to their little business?
Yep. Okay, we're going to come to the chickens in a moment, right? But this is a private express trust. So what does that mean, that it's private, that it's not registered somewhere? Is there any requirement to do so? Do you need to inform the land registry if it's doing your house? What's it a private one? Who needs to know? Nobody.
The trustee and the trustees and the settlers or the settler. Not even the beneficiaries need to know, unless they're trustees also, which your trustees can be beneficiaries. But if you're using separate trustees, then the beneficiaries don't even need to know.
Right.
It's a private matter between you and the trustees. When you pass over, then the trustees' jobs is to notify land registry that there's a trust in place, because as you know, when you register a death, everything you've got is frozen. You can't get at the bank accounts or anything like that. So you notify land registry, and then you notify and they'll probably tell you to notify HMRC. And because there's a trust in place, whether you've got to pay inheritance tax or not, if you've got a trust in place for your property, it bypasses probate. Now, probate can take up to a year. There's a massive backlog. And if you haven't made a will, then you have to apply for what's called as letters of administration. And that will extend the process. So I know people are still waiting for probate to be granted. In that time, you can do nothing with your loved one's assets. If it's a house, it has to sit there empty. If they've still got a mortgage on that, you could be in a lot of trouble with fees, late payment fees, charges, if it takes months and months and months. But if it's written in a trust, then it's released straight away, and you can do what you want with that house. You can get it valued, you can sell it, and you can share the proceeds out. Oh, well, that's another definite advantage. Yeah. So whether you're not, or my house is only worth 200 grand. So I'm under the threshold. I don't have to worry about that. But no, if you have to go into a home, you have to worry about that. You have to worry about, paying for your care, and your loved ones are going to lose their inheritance. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So my wife and I, we have a will. It'll go to our children, our home. You're saying a trust, but then it needs to go through the probate process before they get legal ownership of it. But you're saying with a trust, it cuts out the time. It's theirs pretty much straight away. Okay.
Yeah.
That's useful. That is really useful.
It is very useful.
And that we cannot be compelled to disclose the details of the trust.
Sorry, the dog's going mad.
I can't hear it. Dog's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, if you're not worried about inheritance tax, and you're not worried about going into a home, I mean, I would say if your family can look after you, please get your family to look after you, because you'll be safer in their home than you will in a nursing home. Just my opinion. Opinion.
I agree.
So, yeah, I mean, just for one factor that, most people, I mean, a lot of people I deal with, people, lots of houses go up for sale, which are in probate. And they would want to live in the house, but they can't afford to live in the house, and they want it sold, and they want to share out the proceeds as soon as possible. Now, if you have to wait a year for that, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Got a trust in place, it's yours.
Yeah.
You just notify the relevant authorities, and it's done.
Okay, so we could put our house in trust, say to my sister-in-law or my brother or somebody, right? We can still live in the house. There's just the annual market.
There's a paragraph I add into that, because obviously you're giving away ownership for the trustees to manage for you. So there's a clause in there that states that the trustees confirm that you can stay in your property until you pass over.
Right.
And they cannot charge you rent, and they cannot make you move out.
Very good. Okay, so we could put something like that into Karen living, right? Now we've talked about homes in trust, but what else can you put in trust? You said gold, silver, I suppose.
You can put anything in trust, and they all have slightly different rules. And I've only really dived into the private property trust, because I think that's usually everyone's most valuable asset.
Right. Okay.
Also, let me just mention life cover, life insurance. If anybody's got any life insurance and that hasn't been written in trust, that becomes part of your estate. Now, I sold life insurance for a living, and most people, life insurance is cheap, because obviously you have to die to claim on it. So most people have got 2, 3, 4, 500,000, £100,000, £1,000,000 cover. Now, if that's not written in trust, that becomes part of your estate, which will tip most people over the inheritance tax liability.
Right.
Now, all you need to do with that, you don't have to, spend any money. You just call up your life insurance provider, whether it be Aviva or whatever, and tell them you want it put in trust. They'll either do it for you, or they'll send you the paperwork and they'll show you how to fill it. And I've done hundreds of these in my career. And basically it says, when you pass, this goes to so-and-so, so-and-so, name, address, date of birth, who they are, and that's it. And it's safe. It's no longer part of your estate. It's taken away. And that can be a really big deal. Because
it's now the property of in the ownership of the trustee.
Yes.
The settler, which would be the people who have the.
And anybody who's ever bought a house, we've always, people are under the illusion that the bank say you must have life insurance. No, you don't. That is not the law. It's rubbish. But I would suggest you do have it. Most definitely do have it. But it's not the law you don't have to have life insurance to get a mortgage. But they will tell you that. But because that's another sale, you see, it's another lump of commission, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, you mentioned something to me, a slight detour before we started recording about life insurance. So you've been a mortgage advisor 19 years, and you've not been doing that for about a year now.
Well, I finished in May this year. I left the network in May this year, and the year before, when I'd been in the job for 18 years, I had 5 people claim on their critical illness cover. 5 out of 18 years, not bad. And the last 6 months of my job, I was doing my mortgage advising, I had 7. I've had 7 people claim. They've all had one thing in common.
A particular medical intervention?
Yes, and they've all had at least 3. And they've all, most of them were heart conditions, heart attacks, murmurs, serious murmurs, which required an operation. One leukemia. He was in his 40s, non-drinker, non-smoker, average weight, right, fit as a fiddle before this. a cancer that had actually, she'd been in remission for a few years, and then once she had this intervention, it came back with a vengeance, and it was turned into turbo cancer and went into every organ of her body. It's just, if that's not obvious, I don't know what is.
Right. It's so obvious. It's so obvious if people are only willing to confront and tell the truth about it, that's all. But I have a cousin who's 28 years old. He works out, does weight training and everything, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink.
Yeah.
He had 2 of these medical interventions, which apparently we were told were safe and effective. They must have just honest mistake.
I had my children vaccinated when they were kids. I was vaccinated as a kid. I used to have my dogs vaccinated. I don't, I wish I never did, because we have our own immune system. Yeah. Our immune system is absolutely fantastic if we give it a chance.
Give it what it needs, like vitamin D and good food. Okay, yes. Now, so again, I just want to I was struck when you told me those figures.
Yeah.
Take it there right now. Let's take it back to trust, if we may, which is you can put anything in trust, in a private express trust. I've got a friend. He has 6 pets. These pets are trans species. They identify as guinea pigs, but they lay eggs.
Yeah.
And what he's asked me about is, can he put his 6 trans species guinea pigs into trust? And this, we've discussed this, right? So he has the private express trust. He hands it over in the trust to the trustee. And one of the conditions is that the trustee that is responsible for these self-identifying guinea pigs that lay eggs, wherever they may be physically located until they pass. So even if they're in the settler's garden or property, the settler has no responsibility or liability to do with their upkeep or anything like that. That's the responsibility of the trustee.
Yeah.
Can that be done? Because these are very rare, important trans species that.
Well, they are, and they're part of the family as well. I'll give you an honest answer. I haven't got a clue, because I haven't actually researched that. But you've made a very good point there, actually.
Well, I
don't see why not. But would it be recognised? I don't know.
Well, if it meets the conditions, and if they are accurately identified within the trust documents, like in the form of photographs,
yeah,
it says that they self-identify as guinea pigs, but a new breed, right? They're trans species, they lay eggs. Right? If it's all specific and clear, and it's a private express trust, because you can put animals in trusts.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I don't know, but I don't see why not.
Yeah, and I suppose if the government were to find out and were to challenge this, the trustee could actually go back and say to them, well, look, can you tell me by what law or legislation I'm compelled to give you information about trans species animals?
Yeah. But people are worried that they'll come round to their homes and euthanize their pets. I mean, what's all this about shipping your cats now?
Well, they did that with Peanut the squirrel in New York, right?
Oh, that really upset me, actually, because I'm such an animal lover.
Well, the thing is, the government will need to recruit millions and millions of chicken inspectors to go around the house to it's like treating people like they're terrorists. Have you got chickens? Not like, have you got you're keeping a tiger? Are you running drugs? No, have you got chickens?
No. God forbid you have chickens. I've got a Siberian tiger outside in a cage. Oh, that's fine. Fine.
But there's something else that you may know about, Joe, and people watching this may not know about, but we got to learn about this stuff. The 1689 Bill of Rights. Parliament are our representatives. Parliament cannot pass any laws that are to the pejorative of the people. Each individual has the right to decline consent for any statute.
Yes.
That's in law. Our rights are our birthright. We're born with rights. Yeah. Government doesn't give them to us. And these rights that we have, Bill of Rights, not that are in perpetuity, and they cannot be changed by Parliament. And that is still current. You go to legislation.gov.uk, and you can see that the Bill of Rights, 1689, is actually way more potent and powerful than the United States Bill of Rights, because this is for perpetuity and cannot be amended. But what they can do is blow smoke into our eyes, not up our ass, blow smoke into our eyes, obfuscate, smoke and mirrors and everything and misdirect. So our property, I have it. I am born with a lawful right to have property. My property is
Yeah.
mine, and Parliament cannot take that away from me.
But like I said, it's
Right.
education. We need to educate people because people haven't got a clue. I mean, my God, in lockdown, at the time I was, I go to Sainsbury's and say, "Where's your mask? Where's your mask? You've got to wear a mask." I said, "No, I haven't. It's mandate." I said, "Mandate's not the law. I still have a choice, and I choose not to wear one." They bugger off. I mean, I remember going in there on Saturday. It was absolutely packed. I was the only one without a mask on, and I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. It was ridiculous.
It was a very weird. It was a
Very
very weird
strange.
time. That's right.
Bizarre.
That's right. Can't hug Granny. Of course, now can hug
Well,
Granny. We have to hug her in order to keep her warm because the government's going to freeze her to death.
well, 4.5 years ago, it was, take the jab to save Granny. Now it's bugger Granny, let her freeze to death.
Yeah, and let's enrich Zelensky.
Yeah.
Yes.
And people don't understand that the government works for us. We don't work for them. We're supposed to be telling them what we want. They're not supposed to be telling us what to do.
Absolutely.
And all we have to do, and there's there's millions of us now. I mean, I've noticed the difference in the last 2 years, people waking up to this tyranny. I really have. I mean, 2.5 years ago, I was banging my head against the wall, but now I can really see the light at the end of the tunnel. And all we need to do is say no.
Yep. No, we do not.
I do not
Unmask,
comply.
resist, be
Yes.
ungovernable. And it might be, if enough of us do this, it becomes too expensive and burdensome for the system to maintain its control. Because the little people who maintain that control, they're also at the effect of it.
Yeah.
You're working for local or central government. They're going to freeze your granny. They're going to send your tax money to facilitate mass slaughter abroad. They're going to deprive you of food and make you eat bugs. So
They won't be eating bugs. They'll still be flying around in their private jets.
no, the bureaucrat enforcers, of course, the elites won't be, because we all know private jets emit no carbon dioxide whatsoever, which is a real shame because we need carbon dioxide for plant growth. But before we go into that avenue, is there anything else you want to say, Joe?
Email me if you need any information. Got any questions? Just email me. I can't email back War and Peace because my time is limited, and I've had a massive amounts of interest on this already. But I will get to everybody. I've set up a call calendar. I've had to charge £25 for up to half-hour call because that wheedle out the time wasters. Because there's only so many hours in the day, and I never expected the response I've had, and I'm absolutely delighted with the response. And I'm great on helping people. And if people want to do this themselves, then educate yourself. It's possible you can do this yourself. If you want me to help you do it, I'm more than happy to help you do it. If you're in, I'm in Suffolk, so if you're, within a couple of hours drive, I'm happy to come and see you and sit down and have a cup of tea. If you're further than that and you want to set up a talk, I'm more than happy to travel anywhere. Please, I'd like my expenses paid, but I don't charge a fee to do this. But my expenses would be very helpful. And if you get a group, especially stand in the park groups, fantastic. I've spoken to dozens of stand in the park groups, awake groups around the country, anywhere. Please get in touch. I'm really happy to help.
Great, thank you. Well, I would suggest that you do charge, even if it's a small fee, for your public speaking, because it does weed out time wasters. But also, it is your time and your effort and your skill. There's nothing dishonourable about it.
Well, I charge a reasonable donation to help people set up their trusts.
Right.
It's far less than a solicitor would charge you. I spoke to somebody last night, and they said they went to do their mother's trust 5 years ago, and 5 years ago they got quoted £5,000 for just one property in trust. I spoke to another gentleman who had a residential, two buy-to-lets and some land, and they wanted to charge him £15,000. So it's expensive for a reason, because they don't want you to do it for one.
Yeah. But they don't want normal people doing it, ordinary people. Well, it's all right for the elite. It's all right for Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer to put all their assets in trust and everything so that they don't pay any tax.
Yeah.
And it's all right for corporations to do that.
Yeah.
But not.
And I'd just like to say, these people who come round to enforce these not laws, a lot of these people who are working for government agencies and utilities and whatnot, they've had this intervention. A lot of them are off sick currently. So where are they going to find the manpower to enforce this? if most people are going to be off long-term sick, which an awful lot are at the moment.
Right. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
a numbers game, and there's not enough of them.
No, never enough. Okay, which is really, really positive and encouraging. More and more people are waking up. And then I think as more and more people get squeezed by what's coming down the line, then more and more people are going to engage in lawful,
Yes.
legal, peaceful resistance. There's
Once this start knocking at people's doors, they're going to want to take action. At the moment, some people are just all, well, it's not bothering me, so I'm not worried about it. It will be bothering you very soon.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there's nothing that we've said that is, everything we've said is lawful, legal, and peaceful. But,
Yeah. And I must reiterate that I'm not a solicitor. I'm not legally trained. Everything I've said, you can go online and find out for yourself. It's there, but you need me to nudge you in the right direction. Go have a look.
Yeah, absolutely. Josephine, thank you so much for this conversation. I'll have your links in the description below. Please share this far and wide. And if you've got friends who have contacts in the British farming industry, want to let the farmers know that they can create trusts, then please check out bit.ly/make-war-history so that you don't do illegal actions by facilitating war crimes, crimes against humanity, terrorism, and genocide. And between now and when I see you next, please spread the word and preserve your freedom. This is Josephine and Rich signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.